Hey class, I want to walk you through week 10 so that you know what you have to do for English 108. So this is what your module is going to look like. And as always, start with the overview page. I'll just kind of walk you through this first, and then we'll go there and get into some more detail. But there's a pretest to do. What do you already know? And of course, I don't want you to do any like research or anything before that. I just want you to answer the questions as best you can. Um, After you complete that short pretest, there's a couple of short videos to watch. These are going to be an overview of economics. In this one, just kind of like what makes a good economist. It's a really short video, it's only about 3 minutes. And then about a 10-minute video that is going to give you a crash course in social mobility. Social mobility being kind of the ability to move above or below the station into which you are born. And after that, we're going to do a couple of assignments that have to do with social mobility. So there's an assignment here where you have to do a reading. It's a short reading. It's about 6 pages long. Done by it's written by some economists at Stanford, and you're going to have to answer a set of questions about that reading. And then the second assignment is going to be a discussion thread. There's going to be a reading about social mobility that really goes into some statistics about different groups of people and what social mobility looks like for each of those groups of people. And you're going to kind of look at that, and you're going to make a couple of posts into the discussion thread. The second post is going to ask you to do some kind of to build your own data set. So let me just walk in. Let me go into the overview page, and then we'll take a closer look at some of those assignments. This is going to basically say everything that I just said to you, but of course, I certainly recommend you go back through and read it. And from there, right, you're going to watch the two videos, and then let me go into the two assignments, and we could just take a look at those. So this is the economic mobility assignment, and there's a link here to the reading, and there's also a link here to the study questions. You can also find both of those in the module too. I will pull them up here. So the questions are a Word document. You can type your answers in if you'd like, or if you prefer to write them, you can also do that, and then upload a photograph or something. So what I would recommend is you take a look at the questions beforehand, have them out as you're doing the reading, right? And there are 8 questions, and I've given you some space, obviously, to fill in some answers. And the report is here. It's 6 pages long, and it's about economic mobility. These are the authors, and just to give you a sense of like what a paper will look like. This kind of paper, they call this a paper, right? This is like their study. And it's just like kind of how we talked about in the sciences, how there are certain sections, right? In the social sciences, you're going to have the same thing. So in economics, you're going to have this kind of overview here, and then they're going to kind of get into what they studied, and by the end they'll get into their findings. They may talk about their solutions, right? There's also always going to be visuals in an economics paper. And so I'm going to ask you to kind of explain some of these visuals. And yeah, so it's it's a little dense, I guess. I think this is not so bad as it could be. But anyway, so you're going to go through that paper, and you're going to read their findings, and you're going to answer the questions. So that's your first assignment. And if whoops. There's also links. So I put the comprehension questions also just on a page in case you don't have Microsoft Word for some reason. So they're also in the module. And then this is the discussion thread that we're going to do. And so you're going to make 2 posts in the discussion thread. And the directions are a little detailed. Let me walk you through them, right? So in the first post, and maybe it might make sense. Let me show you the article first. So you're going to click on this link here, right? And this is an article from the New York Times. And it's got some visuals. It's going to talk about income mobility charts for girls, Asian Americans, and other groups, or make your own. By the end, I'm going to ask you to make your own. But what I want you to first do is read the article, okay? So, this first part will show you black and white boys raised in wealthy families, right? So if they grew up rich, right, it's going to show you how many of them stayed rich as an adult, how many of them became upper middle class, how many became middle class, how many became lower middle class, how many became poor. And then it's going to have a running tally over here. And you should see it'll kind of keep going, right? It shows you as, it just keeps adding individuals. You'll notice at some point the percentages stabilize, right? So the numbers are going up, but the percentages have stabilized. So you then know what percent, right, of so black men, right? If they grew up rich, 18% of them will be rich as adults. If you're a white man and you grew up rich, you will 39% will be rich as an adult, right? So I can begin to draw some conclusions or do some analysis of that data, okay? And I can look at that data for each of these are called quintiles when they're divided into 5. And in economics, they often divide things into quintiles. I don't know why that is, but they do. Um, and so this is just the first visual, right? And they do this for a number of different groups. So I want you to go through, right? Here they compare black and white girls. And this one, they start with those who grew up poor. You want to see how many are able to be economically mobile and move up, okay? And so you're going to take a look at that data also. And then obviously, read everything that comes with the data. And so you're going to keep going through. You're going to read through this. And then I'm going to ask you to make 2 discussion posts, right? And let me just show you down at the bottom here, it says create your own mobility animations. And so what you're going to do is after you've completed the reading and looked at the data, you're going to kind of create your own chart, right? So follow the lives of, and you can see you can pull down and pick anybody you want, okay? And you pick 2 groups, right? So you can compare. And then you can pick which quintile you want to start with, or if you want to see all, and you can decide what to use, individual income or household income. Household would be if you're married, it would count both incomes as the income, okay? And then who do you want to include? Do you want to include all mothers, including immigrants, or only native-born mothers? So I want you to create at least 1 and maybe 2 sets of data for yourself, and then you're going to kind of report that out to us and tell us what you find, right? So let's just say I want to follow, what do I want to see? Let's look at Hispanic boys and Hispanic girls, right? Let's do something different. If I start in the middle class, right? And let's do household income. And maybe I do 2, I might do one where I do household, one where I do individual and compare them, right? And include the kids of all mothers, including immigrants, or only native born. I'm going to go with all mothers, right? And so I could see what happens if I grew up middle class, right? If I was Hispanic, and I can compare what my mobility upward or downward is if I'm a man versus if I'm a woman, right? And if I'm looking at the numbers, they're pretty similar. So Hispanic women have a slightly higher chance, if they're born in the middle class, of becoming wealthy as an adult. Pretty consistent here, but Hispanic women also have a slightly, more than slight, a 5% greater chance of losing a little ground, right? But men also seem to have an even bigger percent of becoming poor as adults, right? So I can look at that, and then I might look at something else. Like, I wonder if I change it to individual, will things look different? So that's interesting. I noticed very quickly that it looks a lot different. So Hispanic men, if I just am comparing individual incomes, right, they have a much greater chance of becoming wealthy than Hispanic women if they're an individual, right? Which might suggest that Hispanic women do better, just have a greater likelihood of being wealthy if they marry, if they're married. And yeah, so changing it to individual shows me changes things significantly. So that's 2 groups of people who could have really different outcomes, okay? So I want you to just pick what you're interested in looking at, right? And, I want you to create at least 1 data set. You might create 2, and you're going to report out to us what you find. So, here, if we come back, I say in your first post, I want you to respond to the article. So choose something that that really struck you in the article. Okay, you're going to look at a bunch of sets of data there. As you're reading it, just think about like, what are you thinking about? What's your response? And then I just want you to share your response with us in the discussion thread. And you might also make an educated guess as to why the data is the way it is. And then for the second part of the post, right, that's where you're going to create your own data and compare it. You might compare it to some of the data in the article, or compare it to, if you have two sets of data, you can compare the two sets of data. And that you're going to put those two things together into your first post, your response to the article, and then report out what you found when you created your own data sets. And then in your second post, you're going to respond to one of your classmates. So look at the data that they produced and try to compare and contrast it with the data that you produced. What do you notice? Are there differences? Are there similarities? Are there overlap? And what do you think might explain those differences or similarities? Okay, so this assignment is designed to get you familiar sort of manipulating data and doing the kinds of stuff with numbers and with data that social scientists do all the time. Okay, so if I go back, that's what you're doing in the module this week. So just to kind of wrap it up and look back over it again, right? Whoops, didn't want to do that. You've got the pretest, which is just 3 short questions, a couple of videos that are going to introduce you to social mobility, and then 2 assignments, right? The first one being the reading with the comprehension questions, which I included links to here and here, but they're also in the assignment. And then the discussion thread, and everything you're going to need for that is going to come out of that article. So good luck, and I will see you guys or talk to you guys in our discussion thread.